Things that happen every single day is when you're going to get the most experience. That formula is golden, bro. I should have kept it.
Wow, dude, I'm glad we were able to get through that one, bro. That one's a hot topic. Welcome back to our channel, Warriors. We are still growing today. Another banger, an in-person live interview with a former Los Angeles Police Department officer and somebody who worked internal affairs. What's up, dude? How's everything, man?
Dude, Hector, man, thanks for inviting me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. How was the drive over here?
It's easy, just like yours, man.
No
Hey,
traffic?
you came to me, I got to come to you, and I totally 100% appreciate you bringing me on, man.
Thank you. Why don't you give our viewers a brief introduction on yourself, and then we'll hop into the questions.
Sure. You know what? Instead of taking a major trip down memory lane, look, I did 24 years with the LAPD. I retired as a sergeant. I got promoted as sergeant in 2007, and I left in 2022. So in those 15 years as a sergeant, I gained a lot of experience in discipline. The good thing about LAPD is not only did I work internal affairs, which, you know, we'll get into, we'll talk about a little bit, is we're so big that you actually have like a whole unit as your union reps. A lot of police departments have like union reps. We actually have a whole section of sergeants that are just, their sole job is to defend cops. And I did 2 tours. That's how much I love defending cops. And that job really got me a lot of experience because our primary duty was to respond to all these critical incidents, OISs being the most popular because that's what happens the most. And so think of it this way. So when there's a shooting officer, that might be 1 or 2 shooters, right? When you're at scene, your attorney is only going to get paid to represent the shooting officer. Well, guess who's responsible and left with all the other percipient witnesses in the mandated compelled interviews?
The sergeant.
The rep, the sergeant from officer rep section.
Wow.
And so, man, I must have rolled out to, I got to say, at least 100 of these to know exactly what to do from the minute you pull the trigger up until the minute IA says, you know what, we're done investigating this and we're gone. So
this is going to be gold, bro. So your first duty assignment, right? There's different precincts or something.
Yeah, divisions.
Divisions. Where was it, and what was that area like?
Oh, God. So I did probation over in Foothill Division, which is in the San Fernando Valley. Parts of the valley can be a little violent, you know, got into some good stuff on probation. But believe it or not, we went to, I got wheeled, is what we call the wheel. So what happens is in LAPD, in that 1-year mark in your probationary period, you have to transfer out. It's what they call the wheel. So you automatically go, and they give you, like, personnel says, hey, give me a wish list where you want to go. Because, you know, at the time there was like 20 different divisions. And everybody wants to go to the south end, 77, southwest, southeast.
Why is that?
Because that's where it's on and cracking, bro.
Right.
I mean, it's cracking, and you want to talk about setting up perimeters, responding to, like, a 14-man with a gun or a 211 in progress. Things that happen every single day is when you're going to get the most experience.
My viewers are a mixture of all walks of life, right? Some people cannot understand or see the perspective is why a law enforcement officer would want to be in the mix in South Division and where the areas are active.
I would say that it takes a special person to do this career. It's not just working the South End and LAPD. That's just for anyone who wants to become a police officer. Look, there's one thing about you wanting to go to the problem, and the minute you hear suicide in progress or shooting in progress, in your mind, you're going.
Right.
Guess what? There's a lot of people that don't want to do that.
Correct.
And I'm talking about 25 years ago where I didn't even think that way. I just thought this is going to be a great career. My best friend already had 2 years on. He was very influential. But nowadays, it's a whole different ballgame in terms of the kind of candidate that would want to come on. Because maybe they're thinking, I don't know if I want to go to the fire.
Correct.
You know, so that mindset is special, and they teach you that. But You got to have it in you for you to do this.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree, man. We agree that evil exists. We agree that criminals exist. And there has to be a yin and a yang, man. There has to be people with the same oomph to want to combat that.
And in addition to that, I'm just talking about you being, in a police vehicle and, here you are, shooting the shit with your friend and you're talking. Next thing you know, boom, robbery in progress. Wow. I can only imagine, which is one of the reasons I have such a great admiration for your line of work, is that I can't imagine just kicking back, being in a prison yard, and all of a sudden shit's fucking popping off and you have to go. A lot of people don't want to go, and that's when you start separating us to, who's real and who's not.
There it is, man. There it is. So yeah, you need the people that want to get in the mix, because if you didn't have those people, you wouldn't have anybody at all.
Exactly. That's the tough part.
My goodness, bro, that was gold right there. Damn. We didn't even plan this. So we know that there's different well, I called it precincts earlier, but
yes,
divisions.
Yes.
Okay. Damn, you just mentioned what, 25-year career?
20
years?
Yeah, I did. It's July 2022 was 24. I was retired for 4 months, and I took a job over at Cal State University in Dominguez Hills as a lieutenant, hoping to at least, I think the ego got the best of me, because he told me, hey, if you take this job, then whoever takes this job is lined up to be the next chief of police, because it's only the chief of police, a lieutenant, 4 sergeants, a whole bunch of corporals and officers. And I had aspirations to continue that leadership that I gained a lot in all the experience from LAPD. And I spent all of 2023 just thinking to myself, you know what? It's not where my passion's at. My passion is in discipline. My passion is in internal affairs. We get such a bad rap. People keep thinking that, we're the rat squad, and we have this negative stigma, that I just felt like, you know what? I want to let the next generation know that, maybe we're misinformed. Maybe we're not educated enough. And maybe there's just not much awareness as to what an officer goes through.
Facts.
When they're jammed up for some, let's get real, for some bullshit allegations.
Oh, we're going to cover
all that shit. Things. And maybe there is some truth to it.
Correct. Yeah, we're going to cover that too.
Yeah, there's a little bit of both. But right. You know what? I'm a big critic of my own disciplinary machine in LAPD. Yeah. I hesitated in the beginning, but you know what? I'm very transparent to let people know that, you know what? Sometimes we do it to ourselves.
Facts. And
it shouldn't be that way. And lately, I've been thinking a lot about this weaponization. And the weaponization is something that it's brewing now, but it's been around for quite some time. What I mean by that is you'll call internal affairs and you'll use them as a weapon, to try to get you in trouble.
Let's do, baby steps, bro. Baby steps, baby steps. We're going to go to the burning of cops eventually, right?
Yes.
That's what I call it, burning of cops, bro. But again, you're going to put us up on game, and hey, tell us what really happens in internal affairs.
Of course.
As an officer, as a police officer and a sergeant, did you encounter gangs, street gangs in your patrol duties?
I wasn't one of those that, wanted to go work gangs. I think at one point I did. More than anything, I came on the job, dude, and all I wanted to do is just what we call license plate lotto, bro. Really? We would just run plates because we knew the more that we ran plates, one of them was coming back stolen. And the minute one comes back stolen, it is on. That's it. The rush. It's stolen. Oh, you know what? Get an airship in the back of, get an airship in the back of code 37 vehicle we're following, and then next thing you know, you might just go in pursuit. So that fire, that drive is what,
So are you parked on the side of a road and you're running plates, or what are you doing?
Patrolling, bro.
Patrolling, and you just random cars, you're running plates?
Just random cars running the plates. That's what you do.
And one day, or sometimes it might just pop up as stolen.
Yes, because some areas, and till this very day, but maybe back then, there was a lot of stolen vehicle type of crimes that were happening. And so I remember it was just one of those things where, hey, man, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Right. I had an FTO saying, look, you might not get into, an OIS, an officer-involved shooting. You might not get, this type of. I remember him saying, might not get into a use of force, like a major use of force, but what we will do is we're going to get into a pursuit because we're going to be running plates.
So
you're going to be running plates, and it's bound to happen. So that's just a practice that was happening in the streets back then.
So you run a hot plate, you hit them with the lights, and do they run or do they stay put or do they pull over?
Sometimes yes, sometimes don't. And the minute they just take off, you got to say the P word, man. We're in pursuit. Because there's a policy. There's a policy that you have to follow.
Am I correct when I say that they've kind of gotten away from pursuits from what I hear?
The pursuit policy compared to what it was 20 years ago is completely different,
Just
right?
pit maneuvering people when you
pit
wanted
maneuver
to?
or tracking. I'll give you an example. So maybe here, here in San Diego or any part in the state of California, if you get into if you know that you have, let's just say you have a robbery suspect that just, committed a very major violent robbery at AM PM, and next thing you know, they put out the description and fucking A, it's right there, and it's it. Now you're in pursuit. Well, one of the factors that you got to take in consideration is, the speed by which the suspect is traveling, rules of the road, and everybody who's on the road, and the time. You know what I'm saying? So
I got it.
If it's, like 12 o'clock, well, even then, let's just say it's like almost 3 p.m. and everybody's getting out of school and it just happens to be in the residential. You might, so what they have also now is a tracking. They have a tracking mode that you have to request. So once you request an airship, because we have that resource, a lot of agencies don't even have that resource.
Correct.
But let's just say, for this scenario, that it is a big agency. You have the airship that's going to tell you, you know what, you need to go into tracking mode. Not only is the airship suggesting that the primary unit should be going into tracking mode, but the watch commander is telling you, you know what?
Yeah.
In a very nice way, you need to back up. You need to back the fuck up. Mm-hmm. And so that's the big difference. Well, back in my days,
free for all, Wild Wild West.
The minute they take off, you saying the P word, you get an airship in the backup, and it's on and cracking.
Can an officer inherit liability? Say he's in a school zone and he hits a young child as a result of the pursuit, or maybe even the suspect hits a child. Can that cop inherit liability?
100%. Yes.
Wow,
Qualified immunity is something that's being, talked about a lot. You're looking at criminal filings. You kill someone, you're looking at probably, involuntary manslaughter or some type of manslaughter, depending on what it is. Criminal negligence. I mean, you and I both know, depending on what county you're in LA County, a DA like Gascon is definitely looking into, we're not talking about just IA. We're talking about your fucking freedom and going to visit you.
100%.
And so that's real. And if you're listening, and if you're a young officer out there, the game has changed completely. There is rules by which you have to play with. But you know what? They're legitimate. They're good rules, but you got to know how to play the game. Because if you don't, you're going to see yourself, you know what? Get yourself a retainment for a criminal lawyer, because there's a strong possibility. Here's the other part of that criminal liability is that maybe, perhaps, if it is within course and scope, chances are your union might pick up the tab on your criminal lawyer. Could be. But if it's not,
you're on your own.
You're on your own.
Even if you pay union dues of some sort?
I don't know. So that would have to depend on your union dues. Right. There's union dues that you can pay that'll cover you on duty and off duty.
Okay.
There's some unions that will say, nah, dude, fuck that. You're on your own. So if you're that dude out there,
right,
at the bar chilling with your boys,
right,
and all of a sudden you go, what? Mama? And next you know, you flex and you say, well, I'm PD. And then the fight is on. And then next you know, you bust out the gat and you start popping. Guess what?
You're going to prison.
Well, not only that, you're going to have to get some criminal representation, and that fee is going to have to come out of your pocket.
How common was it back 25 years ago for police officers to go before a judge or face trial or go to prison?
Not wasn't even heard of. unless it's like very egregious. I mean, you're talking about like child molestation or child pornography, sexual molestation, those type of charges. You're done. Getting into a pursuit and causing injury while you're in pursuit back then was not as prominent or liable as it is now. What else? Getting caught with a false statement back then. Yeah, you can probably stick around, but not today.
That's because you get added to the Brady list?
Yeah, you get added to the Brady list, and chances are some departments just won't let you go.
Right.
Depending on who you are. Maybe you're that accused employee that's buddies with command staff.
True.
And if you get caught lying,
you get a promotion.
Yeah, you get and a take-home car.
Hey, man, it's the truth.
It's true. It is true. So that's how these things have changed at times. But now, I mean, we can talk about SB2. That's huge. And then we can talk about SB 26, which is that duty to intercede. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
You mentioned that you were a police officer rep as a sergeant.
Yes.
Is that a step that prior internal affairs takes before assuming?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
In fact, in my podcast, I'm going to start asking, what made you go into internal affairs? I think that's an important question. Or were you prepared to even take a job in IA?
Were you?
I was, because I was a rep. I was a defense rep, and what I ended up doing is I had a case where this officer was accused for neglected duty. He had like 2 allegations, and they were sustained, and he received what we call paper penalty. He got an OR, official reprimand. And so he calls Officer Rep section. I pick up the phone. He's like, "Hey, Sarge, you know what? I need someone to look at this IA, this complaint." I'm okay. And then he goes, this is bullshit. This is not how it went down. I'm all, well, listen, do yourself a favor. I want you to read the thing from beginning to end with a fine-tooth comb, from the face sheet, the investigation, the addendum, everything. And then ask yourself, did you do this? Because if it's sustained, what the department's saying is that it occurred. Like it happened.
Right.
Now, if you read that whole thing, you tell me, this is some bullshit. This didn't even happen. Then you know what? Then come see me and we'll do an appeal. And so he read the whole thing. He calls me out. He goes, "Sarge, you know what? It didn't even go down like this." I'm like, "Really? No way." He's like, "Yeah, it didn't even go down like this." So we prepared. We filed for an admin appeal. And in LAPD, you have an appeal process where you actually have a hearing officer. It's like a little mini trial.
Okay.
And the hearing officer is a command staff officer. But guess what? Even if that command staff officer, that hearing officer, rules against the department and says, "You know what, defense? The department screwed up. You're right." That hearing officer, which is a command staff officer, has to walk into the chief because it's non-binding. He has to walk into the chief and say, "Hey, chief, we screwed up. We need to overturn this decision." And guess what? With the case that I did, we won. And he actually went to the chief, and the chief goes, "Okay," and it got overturned. At the time that we had this case, Chief Bratton was the chief, and in his 7 years, he only overturned 3 appeals, and I was one of them.
Wow.
So then internal affairs, the lieutenant there goes, "Hey, man, Marlon, you were very respectful, courteous, professional. If you ever want to come up to work IA, not to investigate, to come up to be an advocate," which is basically prosecuting cops and doing these border rights hearing, he goes, "Let me know. We got some openings coming up." And so I kept thinking to myself, man, I don't know if I want to go over there, right? And then next thing you know, at the time, I just started law school, and I figured, you know what, if I'm going to be doing these trials and these kind of hearings, I'm going to get a lot of experience. So, they advertised for a spot in internal affairs, and that lieutenant hired me, and I worked for him, and I did that for close to 4 years, man.
Nice, dude. So when you were mentioning you have a command staff that's like a separate panel from the department, a problem that I could see is, does this happen where you'll have like a yes man, a command staff that doesn't want to go against the grain?
Of course.
Or go against the department?
Oh, dude, it's completely funky. It's jacked up. Imagine you and I, okay, right now, and we get a phone call and they said, "Hey, Hector, congratulations, you made captain. Hey, Marlon, congratulations, you made captain." And for some reason, that's the chief calling us. We're like, "Hey, chief, thanks, right? You're going to go to this division, and I'm going to go to that division. Fine. Everything is great. Families, everybody's happy. And then all of a sudden, there's a case, right, that's going to be directed by the chief to this hearing, border rights hearing. And just for this scenario, we get picked. Traditionally, it's the border rights hearing is a 3-panel member, 2 command staff officers, and 1 civilian. Now, we get picked, me and you. I'll even make you the chair because they called you 2 weeks before they called me. So you got promoted before. So you're the chair because you have seniority.
Okay.
Right? Now, here we are in this hearing. And let's just say there's a false statement, which is a serious allegation.
Right.
And we go through this entire hearing, and you and I are deliberating all this. If we hear everything that the department brought into evidence, all the testimony that we heard and examined, all the evidence that was introduced that we examine and do a major analysis, and you and I look at each other like, bro, this is some bullshit, right? Mm-hmm. Guess what? We got to go tell the chief.
The one that just promoted you guys.
That one that just promoted you.
Right.
How weird is that?
No, it's awkward.
It's so completely awkward. So what ends up happening, I bring all that up to say that, yes, there is that saying, there's a yes man. But more than just being a yes man, it's the fact that sometimes you don't have that integrity. Sometimes you think about yourself as opposed to thinking about what this is really all about. And if it's really all about the fact that the department got it wrong, and, you know, preponderance is what, 51%?
Right.
And more likely than not, okay, well, more likely than not, the department's saying...
They base those hearings on preponderance of evidence?
Yes.
Wow.
The burden of proof is preponderance.
Wow.
That's correct. However, in my experience, when you start talking about a false statement or a misleading statement, fuck that. You got to crank that up.
That's interesting to know that inmates who violate the rules in the California Department of Corrections, their hearing goes before a senior hearing officer or lieutenant, and it's based on the preponderance of evidence, that more so than not.
Yeah, more likely than not.
It's interesting to know that our police officers are facing the same exact process.
Same, but the challenge, Hector, is that when you start talking about serious allegations, you know what, department, you better be damn sure that what you're bringing to the table, and I'm reading and examining, better be more than 51. I don't want to hear, when I asked him this question, he told me that he was on first in LA. But, you know, I have someone else saying that he was on second in LA. Well, he's lying. No, bro. You better crank that up to like 90%. There better be like 5 witnesses saying that, you know what?
I'm tracking.
When he went to AM/PM, you know, he pretty much motherfucked and went off on the cashier.
Right.
And hit him.
Right. And we got cameras.
And I got his partner.
Yeah.
And there's other witnesses. Right.
And a black eye, a victim.
And a victim. But if you're sitting there going, well, you know, I asked one of the witnesses there and the cashier saying, oh yeah, he MF'd me. And then you're sitting there going, well, that's not the way it went down.
Right.
Big difference. Wow. You know.
That sounds like a whole mess that I want no part of, and that I'm assuming no cop wants a part of anymore. It sucks to be in the hot seat.
Right, which is one of the reasons why I decided to do the podcast, which is one of the reasons why we decided to have these conversations, is because and I want to make very, very clear that there's a lot of police officers, if you're listening out there, or even, you know, if you're a civilian as well, not every police officer in any agency, not just in the state of California, probably around the nation, is going to be facing these type of scenarios or these type of situations. I mean, when I start talking about like serious allegations, serious misconduct, let's just be clear that we're talking about a very, very small percentage. I mean, if LAPD at the time that I was there was like 10,000 strong. Okay, that's 10,000 sworn officers. If I'm telling you that there was 100, just 100 in 1 year, directed border rights, me and the chief saying, you know, this is serious. Not even, let me back up. Out of the 100 border rights, some, not all, are opted. In other words, you and I get into a caper and they offer us 10-day suspension. And you're like, hell no, we didn't do this. We're not guilty. So then we opt to go to this hearing, right? So those are half. The other half is directed facing serious allegations. So what are we really talking about here?
Correct.
We're talking about 0.00001% of the population. So I just want to be clear, but you know what? It's important because it sticks out.
Facts.
And it's you know what? We need to educate it and tell people as much as we can.
So is it up to the police chief to do one of those boards?
Yes.
Now, what happens if you get a police chief that is a political puppet, so to say, and wants to impress whoever he wants to impress, the city mayor, the council, the public? Can he go overboard and weaponize that process?
Oh, 100%. Of course. If it's a newsworthy event, yeah, it's happened in the past. There's been OISs where everybody, oh my God, suspect is a male black and the officers are white. You know what?
I didn't mean to laugh, but it feels good just to get that out there, right? Because you see it in the media, man. You see the emphasis that the media puts on. Black suspect shot by white cop. And it's like, I see what you're doing.
Me and you were PIOs, so I share that sentiment with you. You and I both know that if an inmate was a male black and the prison guards or the COs were white, if the OIS, the suspect was male black and the officers were white, stand by. It doesn't, here's what I always had. I wouldn't say it's a problem. Here's something that I've always been just very skeptical about is, and it sucks because it doesn't become about what happened.
Correct.
It becomes about
the race.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, yeah, it gets political, and some chiefs will, bend and go forward, and that's just I suppose that comes with the position. You know what? Maybe perhaps in the future, who cares? You know what? If you're going against the grain, against all the politics, then I don't know, retire and get another job. And call it a day. Do what's right by the officers. Again, if you feel what's right. Now,
do with right with transpired.
Yeah.
With the the evidence.
Yes, be very transparent about it for sure. But I also want to mention that in OIS, a major excessive use of force.
Right.
Whether or not, whatever the race of the suspect is, or whatever the race of the COs or the officers are, you and I both know, look, man, use of force, they're ugly. Nothing's pretty. Everything is ugly, But what I'm saying is that even the sequence of events in it itself can cause you your job.
Absolutely. And for the record, I wanted to say that any race can get it, right? You step up, you're going to get, you violate the law, anybody can get it, man.
You're going to get gotten.
You're going to get got.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Don't. Don't
do it.
Don't do it. Just follow the law, follow the rules, right? And
yes. And you'll be all right.
And you'll be all right.
10 and 2, get out of the car and, do what you got to do.
I spoke on that yesterday, man, about complying. I spoke on that about complying. So I like the way this conversation's going, man, because we're diving into stuff that the public probably wants to hear or wants to know.
Yes, absolutely. There is a lot of... there's just a lot of topics. There's a lot of discussions that we can have about law enforcement. And you know what? I got to tell you, and I will always say this, is that there will never be enough platforms for us in law enforcement to spread the word and to educate and to make awareness.
You know what I think separates guys like us or guys that have the experience in law enforcement is we understand there's policy and procedure. There's law, there's penal code, there's case law. But at the same time, there's also political agendas, and that you have to be privy of, like, which way is this going to go?
Right.
Not because I follow the law, but because this is the current climate.
Yes.
That is sketchy, dude.
It is, and that can cause you harm.
Correct.
That can compromise your tactics.
Correct.
Right? And that can really, for all that matter, it can really put you in an environment around your colleagues where, like, I don't know about this dude.
Right.
Because he's not willing to go to the fire.
Right.
To go to the problem like we were talking about earlier.
But there's a solution the solution is learn policy, learn the law.
You got to know the rules of the game, and they have changed. Not many people know about AB 392. People don't know the AB 392 is the revamp of 835 APC. 835 APC is your Bible. If you're a young officer or any officer that's listening or watching, is that you have to know what 835 APC is as of 2020. So we're already 4 years in, and I guarantee you, if I were to walk in to any roll call today and ask, maybe not the young ones, because let's just say you graduated in 2021 to present, you'll have an idea what I'm talking about. But other them old school guys, 10, 15, 8-year veterans, or old school veterans like myself. I mean, I'm 25 years. There's a lot of 25, 30-year veterans still on right now, pushing the sled, man, doing the job. You have to know the Bible. That is 835 APC, and it was completely revamped in 2020 because of AB 392. And the reason why I know all this is because I teach for Savage Training Group. Savage Training Group is a company that has dedicated themselves to give you that modern training. No death by PowerPoint, no check in the box. We actually, when you go to class, you engage, you teach back. We do group exercise because our philosophy is, you know what? The learning doesn't stop here.
Where can somebody find Savage Training Group?
You can go to the website. So it's going to be www.savagetraininggroup.com, and you can find all that there. You can find my class. I teach an internal affairs 2-day course. Internal affairs is day one. Second day is OIS with my partner, James Tacchini, who's an active sergeant up in San Francisco Police Department. As a matter of fact, come July 1st, we're going to have to revamp our course, and we're going to be offering a 3-day internal affairs mandated course for all new supervisors or supervisors that are going to get into an internal affairs assignment, and then we're going to offer a 2-day OIS course. And so I say all this, and by the way, you're more than welcome to check out any other private training company. That's fine. And here's a challenge. Your agency won't take the time. They won't take the time. There's not enough training that we can offer. You and I both know that.
So what are some of the revamps that you said in the new
Well, without getting too much into it. So for one, we all know de-escalation is codified. De-escalation is codified into 835 APC. How your department comes up with an acronym as to how you should de-escalate, that's up to the department. But it is codified. Dealing with a radio call with a mental illness, right? What we used to call 5150, crazy people, right?
Oh, yeah.
Try to be too political, but you know what I'm talking about.
I know. There's plenty of videos on the YouTube.
So for the radio, I think the description would be something like, radio call of a male suffering from mental illness. Well, when you get there, they're probably going to be 5150. Sometimes they're going to probably be 5151 for that matter, or more, depending on the circumstances. So what happens is that in 835 APC, there is a criteria by which you have to follow in order not to use deadly force. So they're making certain that when you start pulling the trigger, you need to know exactly what you're dealing with. For example, you might get into a 5150 that wants to kill themselves. Guess what? Killing yourself is not a crime. You might start thinking about tactical disengagement. And how you tactically disengage, guess what? Your agency should have a policy as to how you disengage. And then we can talk about the public duty doctrine, special relationships, just a whole bunch of stuff that's codified and implemented into 835 APC.
So just from what you told me, there has to be a de-escalation process prior to you, or an escalation process prior to you using deadly force.
Correct.
So it can look like, hey, giving verbal orders. Hey, buddy, put that knife down.
Right.
Or maybe it can transition to less lethal.
Right.
Taser, OC spray, baton, perhaps.
Right.
Then what? And then it can what? Just progress into.
Yeah, I mean resources. What resources do you have? What information did you know about the person?
Radio communication.
Communication.
So you're basically checking blocks. Boom, 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 boom.
Right.
So this is how my mind thinks.
Yes.
Knowing what I know.
Yes.
So I'm a brand new police officer. I know I have to check these blocks before I can use my gun.
Correct.
Well, I'm not gonna die, bro. I'm not going to get killed.
Correct.
I have a daughter.
Right.
So as fast as I can check these fucking blocks to preserve my life, right?
Right.
If I encounter that situation.
Correct.
I'm going to check the blocks fast.
But I want to make clear, as my boss says it best, it's not an invitation. Not every situation is something that you have to de-escalate. Bro, you and I go to AMPM right now, and we're pushing the sled, and you hear fucking rounds being pop,
It's
pop,
not
pop,
an
pop.
invitation.
There's an offer for me to,
Well,
you see what I'm saying? I can't just say
good.
to you, sir,
Okay.
would you like,
Wow.
you can't say, hey, sir, you know what? Would you like some de-escalation? You know what? It's great. Let me tell you all about it. No.
And you just caught me on camera, bro, doing probably what a young officer, a young cadet recruit would do. I got to de-escalate every situation.
Exactly. No, not all. Not
And
all.
next thing you know, you got a bad guy shooting an AK-47 into the patrol car.
Hey,
Boom,
bro,
boom,
for the
boom.
people in your environment, hey, man, you see some inmate fucking shanking some CO, you ain't got time to be de-escalating.
Facts, dude. That's gold.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
You and
bro.
I go to AMPM, we hear rounds popping, dude comes out an AR. We don't have time to be de-escalating. We have time to act and get to it and stop the threat. So, again, the saddest part about all this is that your agency, whoever you are out there, doesn't really get and peel the onions and pull the curtains back and have these discussions. If you are that agency, God bless you. But if you're not, you got to get training, man. You got to know this stuff.
Because it's from a liability standpoint, any agency or any department, it's much easier for them to say, hey, here, take this course, take this training, this 1 hour training, sign your signature. You've been trained. You've been blessed. Go out there. So when your ass is in a courtroom, be like, hey, he got the training.
Yep. And here's the other thing too. The other dynamic is, which is shitty. It sucks. Retention sucks. We can't get people to come on the job. It's hard to come on the job. And now there's mandated overtime. There's agencies out there. There's an agency out there right now. I'm not going to mention any agencies, Torrance PD, who actually, I think it's like double or triple overtime.
No.
To work patrol. Because they're that short. Like, hey, man, we'll pay you double to just log on and, because we don't have enough.
What kind of burnout does that cause?
That's my point.
And what are symptoms of burnout?
Right. So now we start talking about the mental wellness, which, by the way, it's such an important piece that we don't address enough. We're doing it now, but we didn't certainly a couple of decades ago. And what I mean, what I'm trying to say is that when you have, it's a recipe for disaster. Oof. You're working 6-7 days a week. You're trying to be home with your family. That one day off that you have, that whole month, where do you get to training? And where do you get to know this 835 APC Bible that Marlon's talking about? I barely even touched the surface. We haven't even discussed totality of circumstances, which is everything Hayes v. San Diego, big case out here, that talks about, hey, all these circumstances in total of everything that you did that led up for you pulling the trigger, guess what? We're also going to take that in consideration. So there's just a lot to know. And in one of our classes, when we do 835 APC, it's going to take you about a day, sometimes even two, to really have just a basic grasp of what we're really talking about. And the young officers, they probably know, but you know what? Keep running those scenarios and keep talking about it, because it's just going to make you a better officer out in the streets.
Yeah, it's going to save your freedom, your life, potentially.
Yes.
Right? It's training, it's education, it's knowledge, it's priceless.
Yep. And by the way, I wasn't trying to pick on Torrance PD. There's a lot of agency. I don't think it's just Torrance, to be quite honest with you. There is bonuses for laterals that are just enormous. There's a agency that's got like a $60,000, $70,000 bonus. But besides Torrance, I know that there's a lot of agencies out there that are saying, you know what? I know you work at 312, but please come to work and we'll pay you double, sometimes even triple the amount.
As an internal affairs officer or agent, as you were, is there a case that comes to mind where that officer was 100% guilty and it was absolutely not a good case?
Yes. I've done 30 of these border rights hearings, and out of the 30, there was 5 that were righteous terminations for false statements. They found him guilty. If I can just pick one, they're all bad. They're all bad in the sense that had you just would have made different decisions, you probably wouldn't have been fired. And what really motivated me, not just this, but several factors to do this podcast, is it's the fact that not many people know that, you know, perhaps if I would have made different, you know, decisions, different choices, I wouldn't have lost my job, right? And so those 5 stick out because they actually lied, and you know, they got found guilty for it. You know, I'll give you an example. I had an officer who had an accused employee who had been in court at criminal courts for I think it was like a domestic violence type of arrest. And he gets to court and pretty much tells the district attorney, hey, you know what? We're here, and I like to stay here. You know, just let me know. She's like, you know what? I'm going to go talk to the defense attorney. Chances are we're going to plea bargain. You guys will be out of here in an hour. And he kept insisting, like, well, you know, if you need me here, I'm good. It's on a Friday. And so she comes back about an hour later and says, you know what? That's it. We agreed to a plea bargain. You guys are dismissed. He's like, well, do you really think that, I need to go? I mean, you know, you really need me, right? You sure about that? She goes, yeah, you guys are done. You know, she's got like 20 other cases.
Right.
So he had to be in traffic court in the afternoon. So what he ends up doing is he ends up calling the traffic court liaison, because, you know, someone has to pick up the phone, and there's like a liaison in traffic court, and he calls and says, show me at this court, room 210. And she goes, okay, roger that. So the liaison writes on the log that he is permanently in the court that he just left. Well, he turns around and calls the district attorney and says, hey, listen, I need you to cover for me. I need you to, you know, I wanted to let you know that I called traffic court saying that I'm going to be in court in your case. So I was wondering if it's okay. And the district attorney must have flipped out of her mind. She says, are you freaking kidding me? I cannot believe you're asking me to go. What? What is wrong? And then now he starts backpedaling on the phone. Well, no, that's not what I asked. And this, and that. And she, you know what? I can't talk to you anymore. Click. So she goes to her bosses. They roundtable it. They go to the Brady unit. They write it up to the Brady alert unit. The Brady unit goes, yeah, this dude is just not just dumb, but just, I mean, come on, very ignorant thing to do.
Absolutely.
And so the Brady alert letterhead from the Brady alert unit gets to the chief of police. Next thing you know, it gets internal affairs, and then lands on my page. I mean, my table. And so I put on the case, and you know what? We put it on, and I suppose from what I can remember, and again, you're taking me back to like 2011, 2012.
Wow.
It's been a long time.
People were doing dumb shit back then, huh?
People were doing dumb shit back then, man. And I want to say when he testified at the hearing, I suppose he was still trying to, you know, skate his way out. No, he wouldn't take no accountability, no nothing. I suppose he somewhere in his testimony, he tried to say that he didn't call or, you know, that's not the conversation I had with the DA. So I brought in as a witness the traffic liaison court. Oh yeah, he called me. Oh, here's the log.
Man, yeah.
Here's when he called me. I brought the DA. The DA actually testified and says, I can't even believe this dude actually called me. So again, what are the lessons learned from all that is...
Don't do dumb shit.
Don't do dumb shit, but, you know, my thinking is that sometimes people just think that if you cover shit up, you're going to get fired, is what they think. Maybe, I don't know. That could be one of the reasons. So you know what? If you fall on the sword, and what do we always ask when you come on this profession? To be truthful, honest, forthcoming, and forthright. You know, have your ethics, man. And when you screw up, you know what? Take some self-accountability. And if you do, and that's going to cost you your job, then you leave and have closure knowing that, you know what? I came forward and I told the truth. As opposed to skating and bullshitting your way out of it. And for all I know, it's been what, 12, 13 years? Probably that young officer probably has no closure and probably still bothers him to this very day. It could be, I don't know. I'm just speculating here. Does that make sense?
Probably a used car salesman trying to finagle people out of their freaking money. But yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Oh, man. And that's interesting because that's a dumb move to make, and you can see why he did it. He probably wanted the overtime. He probably wanted to, show his time occupied that he was on.
To my recollection, I think it was the weekend. He didn't want to go to traffic court in the afternoon. He wanted to take off and go to Vegas.
There it is there, and then, and was it worth it? You got to ask yourself, man, in hindsight, was it worth your actions?
Exactly.
Was your career worth a trip, lying about a trip to Vegas?
Right. Or hanging out with the boys and being, I'm single. Hey, I don't want to fucking go to court. As harsh as I may sound, look, man, you came on this job and, to protect, to serve your community, to do what's right, to do God's work, man. And it's evil out there. It's the worst of the worst that you can imagine. You want to cut corners because you just want to take off on the weekend to go hang out and go to Vegas, whatever the case may be. You know what? Maybe you don't belong doing this type of profession.
So let's turn up the temperature a little bit, man.
Let's do it.
I want you to be transparent, just shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
There's a video that came out of Hesperia, right? And a lot of people have their opinions on the matter, okay? A lot of people think it's excessive use of force. Of course, I'm not going to ask you to comment whether it is excessive use of force or it's not. However, is there certain things that the public should know when encountering? I mean, you spoke on it in the initial part of our conversation. You run a hot plate or a hot stop. Is there something like what goes through the mind? Are officers within their ability, within policy, to be able to defend themselves and or gain compliance, overcome resistance, subdue an attacker?
Yes. And look, I want to make a couple of things clear before we actually give an opinion about this particular incident. One, I'm not a use of force expert by no means.
Right.
I have been retained as an expert, but only when it comes to administrative POBAR. I'm all over that. That I feel very comfortable, right? I've always been very hesitant, to jump on a podcast and say, hey, let me show you this critical incident and pass judgment, because
that's Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah, I'm not one to put myself in your shoes because I wasn't there and I don't know what you're thinking, right? However, let me start off by saying this. So when it comes to the little that I have learned about uses of forces is there's a formula that I learned in LAPD, because I've done a couple of appeals when it comes to use of force tactics, if you will. The formula is as follows. You have basic concepts, okay, right? Basic concepts that you learn, whether they're in the academy, whether you just went to an updated use of force class, what have you. 5-year veteran, 10-year veteran, 2-year rookie cop, whatever tactics you've learned. So those are your basic concepts. Plus real life variables, right? Think about that. So you have real life variables. What that means is that there is, whatever incident you may be, you got to take all these variables in consideration. It might be fluid, it might be stagnant. You're constantly, have to think about what you're going to be doing, right? That's part of command and control. It's part of formulating a plan. So you got real life variables plus basic concepts equals deviation. So what we're saying is that at some point there's going to be some deviation, because when you're in the academy and whenever you're doing that use of force training, your division or your precinct, whatever, it's in a sterile environment,
okay,
right? So you're not going to deviate because they're teaching you. In real life, when you apply tactics, there's a strong possibility you're going to deviate. The question is, do you substantially deviate? And when you substantially deviate, fine. Even the department as big as LAPD will say, fine, we understand that you substantially deviated. What do we mean by substantial? I don't know. That could be depending on the circumstances.
Facts.
But the biggest question you need to ask yourself is, can you justify it? So the way it works is, substantial deviation from department policy and procedure without justification. If you can't justify
Facts.
every single tactical application in that incident, in that caper, I'm going to have to jam you up. I'm going to have to discipline you, right? Depending on what it is. Now, let's take that into this Hesperia. One of the things that I see, and believe me, bro, I defend cops way more than I prosecuted cops, okay? And I love, my brothers and sisters in blue. However, and this is where I have a problem with, is that maybe you can kind of help me out with this, but when it comes to handcuffed suspects, I just don't know what tactical applications do you have to apply when it comes to someone who's handcuffed. There is situations where, you're handcuffed and you're still acting,
right.
You still have to overcome their resistance. Yeah. You still have to make sure that you don't prevent an escape from them from the backseat of your car or wherever, the case may be. And you have to effect an arrest. Well, you're effecting an arrest. He's already arrested. So I don't know how much of an effect you can have when someone's handcuffed. And so taking that in consideration, I just don't know that all those blows that one deputy was applying, I can't tell whether or not that's complying. I can tell you that, I can't tell you that San Bernardino County sent them on admin leave. What that tells me is that it probably wasn't something that we teach. Uh-huh. It's not something that we're applying. Mm-hmm. And chances are, we're looking into some kind of serious misconduct. Could be. I don't know. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I'm glad you saved me from the question that I asked you, bro. I said, I'm going to turn it up, right? And you're like, but no, exactly. You answered it the way I would have hoped you answered it. You're like, hey, this is what a investigation looks like from the inside.
Yes.
And you said a deviation, which is interesting and new to me, man. It makes total sense.
That formula is golden, bro. I should have kept it. For, but I can't. I asked I asked these tactics experts in LAPD if I can use it. They say, yeah, go ahead, because it's important. It's important to know. Not many people know about this stuff.
Oh, man, it's golden, dude.
Yeah, it is true. Look, man, there's always going to be deviation. Whether you're in a correctional facility or whether you're out in the streets pushing the sled, there will always be deviation. Nothing will ever go textbook. They won't. You think when they pull them over and they drag them out of the car, you thought it was going to be, we're just going to arrest them in there. Now, having said all that, this is just me where I have a problem based on my training and experience. Couple of things. Number one, you and I both know about emotional intelligence.
Facts.
Okay. EI is huge. And what I mean by that is, if he wasn't a career criminal wanted for a violent crime, and we knew that he's a total gangster and he just victimized someone and all the evidence is in his car, you know what? Do we got to get this guy?
Yeah.
Compared to someone who is not a criminal at all, correct, and you do a traffic stop, and for whatever reason you want to get him out of the car, and the sequence of events happen like that.
Facts.
Right? So I don't know that. So I would think emotional intelligence.
Well, it's kind of like prepping for a fight versus Mike Tyson versus prepping for a fight at, some Joe Schmo at a bar.
You're absolutely right.
Exactly. You're going to train a little harder for this fight right here.
Yes. It's kind of like, you're absolutely right. It's kind of like the Final Four right now. You're getting ready to go to the national championship game, but you're playing like a D3 college and you're like, yeah, whatever.
And go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that what I have a problem with is the following, a couple of things. Number one, if it was me, chief for a day, I wouldn't handle the administrative. We all know it's criminal in nature. Could be. My understanding is they're looking at criminal filings. So in an internal affairs investigation with an incident like this is what they call tolling. So tolling, what it means is that we're not going to take care of the IA right now because we're going to wait to see what happens with the criminal proceedings. So let's just say we're 1 month in, and it gets referred to the DA's office. They can take 2 or 3 years, right? 2 or 3 years, however long they take. After they say, you know what, we're not going to file it. Here you go, San Bernardino. Now you got to do the admin in the IA. So now you have, if it was 1 month, you have 11 months to do the administrative interview for internal affairs. Now, me personally, I wouldn't let San Bernardino handle it, even though it's an agency of 2,000 plus.
Conflict of interest?
That's just me, Hector. I would actually, if I was chief, I would call probably the neighboring agency and say, hey, do me a solid.
Yeah.
Because it just looks biased, bro.
Wash your hands.
Yeah, I
with this
mean,
one. It's like,
how do
hey,
you know?
man,
Look,
facts.
I understand how many. Somebody has what? A couple of stations?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that makes total sense. You would want to do that, actually.
Well, I mean, what if you get that one IA investigator that says, "Oh yeah, that's my boy,"
Yeah.
or you get that one saying, "I knew that dude. You know what? I'm going to burn him."
Right.
That's the problem.
He hooked up with my chick. Back
He
in
hooked
the
up
day.
exactly. You know what? He smashed my girl.
Right.
That. You know, he's a little punk. You know, and you get the haters, or you get someone that's in favor.
Right.
You have to avoid all that because you want to remain as neutral, impartial, and fair as much as you can. That's just me in terms of doing that. That's part of the reasons why you either go outside, like hire an outside firm
Right.
that doesn't even know. I would hire someone that doesn't even know where San Bernardino County is. Like, get someone from, like, I don't know, what's that over?
Like,
what's over there in Santa Cruz?
You
in
hire
North-
somebody from Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Like, yeah, you did what we do every Friday, boss. That looks good to me. Promote them.
Wrap it up. We're good to go. Here's a bottle of whiskey.
Damn.
Congratulations. Yeah.
What
No,
a
totally.
trip.
I totally get that. So that to me, you know, that goes to the core of what I know. So that's what I would do. Then the other thing too is we talked about DEI. I just don't know, man. I don't know how you don't come up with some administrative allegations.
I'm glad we were able to have this
You know.
adult, professional conversation, man, because
Yeah.
these are touchy subjects,
Yeah.
bro.
Hey, bro.
Cities will riot over something.
You
know, a
have to
verdict.
come. Yeah, you have to come up and say, "Hey, look, dude. You know what? We're going to frame allegations against you." It's that simple. You just can't be doing all that to a handcuffed suspect.
I don't know if he was handcuffed though.
I read.
don't know.
Well, someone said. Well, I read the article. I think that it was.
Okay,
I
I
might
don't
be
know,
wrong.
man. I don't know.
Yeah, or they were trying to gain compliance.
Yeah.
One article said, yeah, and again, if I'm wrong, please educate me. I don't want to be misinformed.
Right.
But my understanding is that he was handcuffed. At least the sound bites that I've seen from the news saying that
Well,
he was
actually,
handcuffed.
he was not because his hand. Remember,
One
did
of them
was he was trying to get it, you know, and then some.
Right. Right. And then again,
It's a can of worms, bro.
right. So let's just go with the fact that he wasn't handcuffed.
Okay.
Even if he wasn't handcuffed, one of the major analysis you're going to have to do is those blows to the head to gain compliance. And I don't know. Some expert from San Bernardino is going to have, some tactical expert is going to have to say, well, we don't really teach that,
Right.
but you can deviate substantially. And maybe you can justify, maybe you can't. I don't know. But because it is a newsworthy event, it is completely sensationalized. People don't understand. There's a strong possibility that, you know what, we're going to have to frame allegations of excessive force. And then we'll go from there, man.
Now, as a former IA guy,
Mm-hmm.
how much impact or bearing does the media sensationalization or the public impact or persuade or nothing?
No, not at all. I mean, look, you know what you want to do when you start, if you're the IO and this is one of your cases for excessive force, you just want to make sure, you know, and I'm really big on this, especially in my class, is that, you know, I have this mantra, no stone goes unturned.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to really, really do the officer the favor. They don't think it's a favor, but
Right.
you're doing him the favor to pretty much answer every single little questions. Don't be that half-baked, you know, IO that's going to open the door and ask the questions. Okay, so when you got out of the car and you went up to him, tell me what happened. And then he tells you, well, this is what I did, this is what I did. Okay, great. And now you move on to open the door to another set of questions. That's not what you want to do. You want to be able to say, okay, at the time that you did this blow to the head, what were you thinking and what is it exactly that you were trying to gain? Well, you tell me, were you trying to gain compliance? He might say, yeah, I was trying to gain compliance and blah, blah, blah. That could be the case. I don't know that. I'm not favoring the officer, no, but what I will tell you is that it looks extremely, extremely ugly.
Yeah.
And there is, and here's the saddest part, Hector, is that nobody wins. Nobody wins in this. Not the community, not San Bernardino, not us, because it's a stain. It makes everybody think that we are like these monsters.
The people that win are the ones that push the defunding of the police, saying, "Oh, look, they are monsters. They are militarized." And even though this was a one incident in out of probably a million traffic stops.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, out of the million uses of forces, we're going to choose this one. It's kind of like when all we said was, "I've never heard of Kenosha. I've never heard of Ferguson. I've heard of Minneapolis."
Right.
But I didn't know their police department, had this, rogue dude. And by the way, that wasn't the first time he did that against George Floyd. That's probably just the way he conducts police business. So I'm a big proponent of culture. Culture will always take. People say, well, we need reform. We need training. No, you don't, bro. You need culture. A major change. And, having these platforms.
Right.
We're doing the work, man, and there's a lot of work to do.
Facts, man. Facts. Wow, dude, I'm glad we were able to get through that one, bro. That one's a hot topic, dude. It's a hot topic, and I understand people get emotionally involved in that, bro. Like, I guess we become desensitized to stuff like that, where we look at it and it's like, fuck, yeah, that is fucked up, but it is what it is as far as, like, that is right. Just shit can happen.
Yeah, and
does happen.
And then we preach transparency, which is great, and I'm all for it. Another thing too about that incident is that there is no body worn video.
There is not?
Not to my understanding. I haven't seen or heard. Maybe there is. I don't know. I want to say it's a specialized unit, and maybe someone can educate me. But maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Oof. But if it wasn't for that one person videoing this, and again. These are just things that we need to be critical. It sucks that we have to be critical.
Yeah.
But if you're going to ask for my opinion about it is, there is some deviation. It can be very substantial. The question is, can you justify those deviations?
Woo. There you guys have that one, folks. In case you were wondering about that, you got some insight on the process of an investigation. Again, he's not a use of force instructor. I'm not a use of force instructor. Should not be taken as legal advice whatsoever.
Me neither.
You know what I mean? So it's just, two guys chopping it up.
Yes.
With that being said, officers involved shootings, man. I've seen about 1 million of them on YouTube. They're everywhere now, dude. It's good content, and it's crazy for me to say that. What are the process as far as you're a watch sergeant or a watch commander and you hear over the radio, shots fired. What is the process that goes moving forward?
Well, for one, shots fired, get on the air and say, okay, what do you mean by shots fired? Mm-hmm. Do we have an OIS? Mm-hmm. And they say, yes, OIS. Now, all of us know officer needs help. That's different. That means, yes, you've been shot at or some shit's going down. Chances are it is an OIS. So I want to be clear because I did have a case where over the air that says shots fired, but the sergeant at scene wasn't quite told that, oh, by the way, not only was it shots fired, but it was an OIS. Like 40 minutes later, and he's like, are you serious? So anyways, that's very, very important. I
didn't know that. I assumed you hear shots fired, it means a cop shot his gun.
True. That would be different in different departments. Okay. But my suggestion is, as a practice,
right.
You should probably get back on the air and just to clarify, shots fired, OIS, shots fired. And if they say yes, or officer involved, or I've been shot,
I'm hit.
Or I'm hit.
That's all bad,
something.
Man.
I mean, something along those lines.
Right.
Because shots fired could mean there's just shots fired. Okay.
So hearing that on the radio, everybody's heart anxiety just skyrockets.
Exactly. You want to know as much info. Dispatch priming is huge. I mean, dispatchers should really clarify, hey, what do you mean by shots fired?
So troops get, they respond.
Yes.
Supervisors, is it automatic a supervisor?
100%. You as a sergeant have to get there. And if I was a sergeant at scene, the first one, you have to declare yourself to be the incident commander.
Okay, incident
you
commander.
have to be the IC. Declare yourself. You know what? Get on the air. 16L20, I'm going to be the incident commander. Now, with that being said, because we are talking about not just the state of California and whoever else is listening, is sometimes a sergeant or a supervisor might take you a while to get there, depending on the demographics, right? Mm-hmm. What I would do, and it's probably not even your policy, is if I was at scene, like if I'm the shooting officer and I'm the partner officer that just arrived at scene, I would declare myself to be the incident commander.
Perfect.
And start formulating and designating a plan. Okay, what are we going to do here? I know that my partner was a shooting officer. Okay, cool. Stay right there. And then next thing you know, the sergeant's coming, and you can say, hey, Sarge, you know what? I declare myself to be the IC. I'll relinquish that to you, or what do you want me to do? Sarge might say, you know what? Go ahead and be the IC. Where do you need me? Or the sergeant says, you know what? Go ahead. I need you to go do this and that. So, delegating, directing, guiding, all that's super, super important. So once the first sergeant at scene gets there, you should be declaring yourself to be an incident commander.
If you are a youngster in law enforcement, go back and rehear what he just said. Reason being, and again, no disrespect, is that you don't have to wait around for somebody to tell you what to do, right? He just said you could be a police officer, arrive on scene, and you just take charge. Hey, man, I'm the incident commander. Hey, where's the suspect? All right, buddy, come here, and start, as he said, formulating that plan.
When I was, my last assignment, my division was MTA, LAPD, before I retired, because we had the contract. We took it over in 2017 from the sheriffs. And our Code Alpha location where we used to do roll call was at a church. I'm just giving you one line in particular, like the Expo line. And so in that line, we would meet on this particular location, but they got to go and jump on the trains. Well, one train stopped. Platform, dude, it's like all the way out, and it's, so I would always tell, it's like 15, 20 minutes, to the border of that one train line where my officers are posted. Well, here's the problem, bro. It's Tuesday, 10 o'clock a.m. on the 10 freeway here in friggin' LA. Look, man, if the shit goes down and it's about to go down, you need to declare yourself to be the incident commander. Because guess what, man? It's going to take me, even if I go code 3, let's just say I even go code 3, it's going to take me minimum 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes just to get there. In those 8 to 10 minutes, that's a long time.
Facts.
For you to be doing what I'm supposed to do, because as a sergeant, my policy is I have to declare myself to be the incident commander. But nothing in the policy says that you can't do it.
And as a supervisor, we appreciate that because it takes a load off of our plate.
Yeah.
And, if we see you guys handling it, it's like, hey, fucking handle it. Continue to handle it. We're not going to step on your toes. At least that's not my style, and you just said it wasn't your style.
Right. And, enough about me. I would imagine a correctional facility. How big is a correctional facility from one wing to another?
Well, you do have your incidents, you have your incident commanders, and you have your response supervisor, which is the rank of a sergeant.
No, I understand. But what I'm saying is let's just say you're in one wing, and the shit goes down on the other wing. How long is it going to take you to get there?
It's going to take a minute.
A minute or so.
Yeah, Donovan had the big yards. And yeah, especially when you have numerous incidents, numerous people fighting in numerous locations.
Right.
There's only one of you.
Yeah. So then all your COs are looking at you going,
yeah,
hey, Sarge, what do you want us to do? No, bro, look, dude, I'm running. I'm trying to get there.
Right.
Have a plan or start doing something that's effective.
Facts. So with the officer-involved shooting, I see that they escort the officer that was shot out of the way.
Yes. So one of the things that you have to do in the majority of agencies, I would say definitely in the state of California, is that you have to obtain a PSS, is what they call the public safety statement.
Yep.
So in that public safety statement, it's something that has to happen. Now, the question is when that happens and how you go about getting that PSS. It just all depends. But you have to do that. One, when you get there, you want to make sure the scene is code 4, hey, all right, suspect either, is on the ground, you stop the threat and he's dead, or the suspect fled the scene, whatever the case may be. But one of your primary duties is to obtain a PSS. Now, when you are the arriving first supervisor at scene, you got to remember there's a lot of plates spinning. Because you're thinking about the PSS, you're thinking about, okay, he's a shooting officer. You got to think about separation and monitoring. Okay, you know what? How many shooters? Well, we both shot. Okay, so then you stand over here and you stand over there. You know what? 16020. Can I get additional? Yeah. Because what you don't want is to then say, all right, bro, you guys two hang out.
Wow.
And you can't be hanging out because
you can't corroborate reports and stories.
Yeah, hey, bro, All right.
He just say this, or I think I saw this.
Exactly. So, so those are the kind of, these plates are spinning a lot. And again, take it with the greatest assault. There's a lot of circumstances that you have to think about. If you're a small agency, and there's only one supervisor on the street, then you might want to call the neighboring agency. Hey, what's your ETA? So those are the kind of things you got to take in consideration.
So you have plates spinning, right? You have multiple police shooters, right? You have a down suspect victim. And on top of that, you have screaming, irate family members.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why did you do that? My baby didn't have a gun. And you look at the fucking Glock with a 33 round magazine under him.
You know what? Maintain your, control yourself, man. You know, you there's that saying, cool, calm, and collective. You know what? Don't deviate from what you know, and as young sergeants, and we teach this stuff at Savage Training Group, but you have to really have a composure where you have to do a lot of stuff. And for some people, it could be overwhelming. It could be stressful. You know what? Now, in your example, you got crowd control, right? You got a suspect down. You got plate spinning about monitoring, separating, and the PSS. So you have all these things going on. You got to get resources there and just as much as possible. Call, I don't know, neighbor agencies. Get me 3 sergeants. Get me additional units, and start, formulating plans, man.
Dude, you're spitting out pure gold right now, bro. Now, what does that do? And I guess I'm speaking from experience, bro, because it really agitates me when I see that. People defending legitimate suspects that literally fired at cops or maybe even shot a cop, and you got the family member screaming on a personal level. Or what does that do to an officer on scene when you have somebody yelling that, you just killed an innocent man, but you knew damn well the dude just shot at you, probably shot you in the leg.
Yeah.
What does that do to somebody mentally, or is that stressful?
By all means, look, man, one of the things that I didn't mention is before I started the podcast, I actually did 12 episodes of guests that came in and talked about their OISs because I really felt that transparency, we're only halfway there. You really want transparency? Why don't you ask a police officer what he or she has to go through when on that day of that incident? And something that I could never relate is they have to live with the fact that they actually kill somebody.
Facts. And
you know what? The guests that have come in, they're talking about incidents that happened almost 20 years ago, and they vividly can remember every single detail. So it's probably not even closure for them because they don't talk about it enough.
Never will be.
And there never will be. So yeah, man, it's something that I can't relate to, but I can only imagine. And it's interesting you say that because someone asked me the other day about, when you came on the job, what were you thinking? What led you to get into law enforcement? And I always say that my best friend was major influence. But at the time, I kept thinking to myself, do I really want to carry a gun? Do I really want to get into a shooting? And I want to say, and I'm taking you way back because I'm giving out my age here, but this is like early 90s. There was an OIS, a shooting in New York, the Diallo shooting, where this kid was walking up to his apartment building and a couple of New York NYPD cops, I suppose he was a suspect, he was wanted for something. They told him that not to reach for his pocket, and he ended up having a wallet. And 44 rounds. And as a matter of fact, Bruce Springsteen wrote a song called 44 Rounds because of that incident. Yes. And so, not many people know that. And, me being in my early 20s, I'm thinking to myself, fuck, dude, I don't ever want to live with something like that. So when I joined the LAPD, or I was processing, that was one of my concerns and my fears.
Wow, dude.
So to your question is, yes, absolutely. It can definitely have an impact, not just going back to work and doing the functions of a police officer, but it definitely has an impact on your family, on your personal life. Oh, my
goodness. But man, I can't even imagine. I wouldn't want to imagine,
No, totally.
Damn, dude. In closing, what advice or last words do you have for maybe viewers that are uninformed about law enforcement officers and or younger cops coming into the profession?
Well, for one, definitely keep listening and watching Hector, because Hector is one of a kind. He brings, I'm so glad that we connected because there just isn't enough platforms. I would say this, look, if you're thinking about doing something like this, just be very, very sure that this is a profession that you want to get yourself involved in. You're going to be working graves. You're going to be working holidays. You're not going to be home. Some agencies are going to mandate overtime, okay? And we've just talked about it. You have to train. You have to seek training on your own, okay? So it's not this glory job where you're going to walk, an old lady across the street and sell lemonade and take pictures on Instagram and, hey, look how cute we look, and doing all these community events. That's all great. I'm all for that. But you need to know that if you get into this type of profession, you're giving up a lot. You're giving up a lot of your emotions. You're giving up a lot of your psyche. You really are challenging yourself. But you know what? I would do it all over again because it's super, super rewarding. With that being said, we are better equipped to ensure that all you youngsters that are on right now and that are trying to come on this profession, that you have these platforms and you have mental wellness, you have wraparound services, if you will, for you to succeed in this profession. And you know what? Keep listening, man. You know what? I have my Internal Affairs podcast, which a lot of people say, hey, Marlon, man, that's so bold. Why did you call it Internal Affairs?
I like it, man. I like bold, and I
like
name.
bold. And you know what? I was told by my boss, and this is so true, clarity wins.
There it is.
You got to be clear about your message. You got to make it simple. And we are, you know what? If you're listening, you have an IA story, because that's what it's about. It's you coming in, telling me what happened, in your career with an IA. And you know what? Let's get some lessons learned, man. Let's get some takeaways, because what I've realized, Hector, also, and maybe you, because you came in as a guest too, is what I'm starting to realize, and what I'm learning from this experience, and God has blessed me because He does His best work through people. I mean, so instrumental, uses us as instrument, is there's a lot of affirmation and validity in you coming in and telling your story. What I mean by that is, I've had a lot of veterans come in, 30-year old school veterans. They want to talk about the 1992 riots and their young careers and how police work was back then. But you know what? They're known in the department. They have a good reputation. They've done all these badass bitchin' jobs. They get the cake, the retirement, the little, we have a flyer, that one flyer.
Right.
You get all the accolades, awards. Hey, we're going to miss you, this, and that. But that one blemish, that one little thing that the department jammed me up with, which might be my fault. I might take some accountability. Or, you know what? The department did me wrong. It sticks out, man. And you know what? It's a word of validity. So if you're out there listening, man, come on down and get to see me. Instagram is what? Internal_affairs, _podcast. Get a hold of Hector. Dude, thank you so much,
What's
man.
your YouTube channel? Where can they find you on YouTube?
Internal Affairs, a police podcast. Go on it, man. It got some really, really good stories.
There you go, guys. Oh, my goodness, man. Some very hot topics that I didn't even know how we were going to tippy-toe around. But we just go right into it like we do, man. So once again, dude, thank you for coming over, taking the drive, man.
Yes.
And we got plans, okay? We got plans.
Yes.
We were discussing them prior to this.
Yes.
So with that, thank you guys for watching. Keep pushing forward.
That's right. Be safe out there. Thank you.